OBR warns budget is unlikely to lift economic growth over next 5 years. Forecaster says extra spending, revealed by Rachel Reeves, will give only a short-term lift to economy. Labor has embarked on a large, sustained increase in spending, tax, and borrowing, according to the government's economic forecaster, as it judged that Labor's first budget for 15 years is unlikely to increase economic growth over the next 5 years. Assessing Rachel Reeves's policies, the Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, said the economy will expand at the same rate as predicted in March by the end of the Parliament, despite a £70 billion a year rise in spending. The extra spending revealed by Rachel Reeves will give a short-term lift to economic output, it said, but leave the average rate of growth over the next 5 years unchanged. A change in the budget rules that allows for a spending increase will swell the size of the state to 44% of annual national income, 5 percentage points higher than before the pandemic. Richard Hughes, the head of the OBR, said the effect of an increase in taxes of £36 billion would take the tax take each year as a proportion of national income to a historic high of 38% by 2029-30. Hughes said, "Against a largely unchanged economic and fiscal backdrop since our last forecast in March, this budget delivers one of the largest increases in spending, tax, and borrowing of any single fiscal event in history. The larger state will crowd out business activity and business investment," the OBR warned, pushing living standards down by about 1% in the last year of its 5-year forecast. Inflation will be slightly higher than previously estimated and wages slightly lower than previously forecast after a £26 billion hit to business costs from the chancellor's decision to hike employers' national insurance. The expanded state would be competing with the private sector for the same scarce resources, pushing up prices. The fall in disposable incomes is inevitable when the government is taking 2% of national income to spend on public services and public investment, said David Miles, the chief economic advisor to the OBR. The increase in borrowing will cost the government more than £100 billion in debt payments in each year of the Parliament for the first time, he said. There was a better outlook for the economy over the next 2 years, compared with a revised outlook since March, but a weaker rate of expansion in the second half of the Parliament, the OBR added. A prediction in March that the economy will grow by 0.8% this year was revised up to 1.1%, in line with the outlook by the International Monetary Fund and just below the 1.2% forecast by the Bank of England. Next year, the economy is expected to expand by 2%, a faster rate than the 1.8% expected in March. However, the growth rate will slow in subsequent years compared with the forecast in March. In 2026, the OBR said growth would be 1.8%, down from 2% in March, and 1.5% in 2027, down from the 1.8% prediction in March. Hughes said 2 new budget rules would also govern how the government taxes and spends. One rule forces the chancellor to keep day-to-day spending in balance. The other allows the Treasury to include government assets in its calculation of the national debt. Reeves said she had adopted a new measure of national debt to align with the way it is calculated in France, Germany, and Japan. The switch to public sector net financial liabilities, PSNFL, will capture assets such as student loans and investments made through government agencies. Conservative spending plans implied £19 billion of real terms cuts in 2028-29 for unprotected departments such as justice and transport. Reeves, who has vowed there will be no austerity under Labour, pumped most of her extra spending into the NHS. She said defense spending would remain above the commitment made to NATO of 2% of national income. However, the OBR said this had been achieved after reducing a growth rate of 3% in defense spending this year to 0 next year, once adjusted for inflation.